Hello everyone, and welcome back to Shadowrun for Super Nintendo. Alright, Jake was just taking a little bit of a nap here. This video I'm going to explain just how the karma system works. You earn karma either by accomplishing tasks or defeating enemies, and you spend it in order to increase your attributes, or your skills, or your magic abilities. Now, in order to increase any specific ability, you have to have the equal amount of points, so if you have 3, you spend 3 karma points and it becomes 4. Now, right now we don't have any magic available to us, so it's just attributes and skills. Firearms affects your accuracy when you're using your firearms, and computer affects how competent you are whenever you're trying to hack into the Matrix. We haven't done that yet. As far as your attributes, body determines your health bar. Each time you put a point in it, you get 10 additional health. That maxes out at 20. Strength affects how accurately and how far you can throw grenades, as well as the grade of equipment that you can use. Heavier firearms and body armor requires higher strength. Charisma affects how long Shadowrunners will stay with you and how many that you can hire at one time. So if you want to hire a bunch of Shadowrunners and you want them to stay with you for a long time, you should increase your charisma. Skills, that's pretty self-explanatory. Firearms and computers maxes at 6. Strength and charisma max at 6. Body maxes out at 20. All things. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually increase. You already saw I increased firearms and computers a bit. I'm going to increase charisma. Now you might ask, why am I doing that? Well, the reason I'm doing that is because one of the best ways to earn karma very early on in the game is, well, first I'm going to explain how to earn money most quickly early on in the game, and that's by going next door to apartment 7 and 8 and getting in gun battles with random opponents that you'll actually find, assassins really, mages and thugs, that hang out next door and are looking for you. Usually that can spawn anywhere from 1, sometimes 0, but anywhere from 1 to 4 bad guys in a room like this. Now they all have guns, and they're all reasonably accurate, so you have to be careful, and whenever your health gets low, you should go next door and rest. This is probably one of the fastest ways to get money early on in the game. Now, at this point in the game, though, you don't really need Nuyen for a lot. I mean, you don't really need it for much of anything, because there's really only 2 things that you can buy that aren't quest-related, and that would be grenades from the sketchy businessman for 100 Nuyen a pop, or alternatively, you could hire the services of Hamfist, the Shadowrunning Orc Decker, at the local club. Now, the reason you would want to hire him is because of what he's armed with. He has a T250 shotgun, which is much more powerful, and is something we might actually want to consider buying ourselves later on in the game when it becomes available. And hiring him and going to the graveyard, which we did visit in the last video, is actually one of the most efficient ways to get karma in the early game. I mean, you can just rack it up like there's no tomorrow because the ghouls come by so quickly. I mean, they just come out in hordes. Now, the reason I increased my charisma is because it will make him stay on with us longer. Thus, we'll be able to earn more karma. I don't really feel like getting in a fight with that guy, so I'm just going to go out of his line of sight. Alright, so we can come down here and talk to, I believe his name is Hamfist. Yeah, that's his name. You can talk to him. Yep, he hasn't lost 1 neuron yet. Let's see, can we negotiate with him? No, it doesn't really do anything. Alright, so we can hire him for 500 Nuyen. So save up that much money by fighting the random goons, and then hire him. Alright, now once you can do that, you can actually put your mouse on him and examine him. He has 30 health like we do, strength of 4 and a charisma of 4. He has a T250 shotgun and a mesh jacket, so he's got better equipment than us. And he's very useful, because that additional firepower allows you to just mow down ghouls in the local cemetery and earn you a whole lot of karma. You can also talk to him. I'll watch your back, you betcha. I have other jobs. Better get this one over quickly. Whatever. Alright, so open the bronze gate and head into the cemetery. Now, all your job is really going to be is to avoid the ghouls, because they will not go after him. I don't know why. Maybe ghouls don't think orcs are quite so tasty, but apparently they are. This one actually dropped a ghoul bone. You will want to pick that up. That is one of the fetishes, items that you will eventually need for a magical spell. That is another item that you can get by fighting ghouls in the local cemetery. And it's pretty fun, because pretty much as soon as the ghouls pop out, he usually 1 or 2 shots them in short order. And so all you have to do is just run around, which will, you know, cause them to rise out of the ground, and he'll just shoot them. He'll shoot them down, seconds flat. They don't even really have a chance. Now, you think, oh, well, once you get them all dead, what can I do? Well, that's simple. You just have to literally walk into one of the tombs, and then come back out. And then all of the ghouls that were there have respawned in their exact same spawning locations. So this is a good way to actually ham up some karma really fast in the early game. And it's important that you do it. If you're fast, you can actually take a few shots at the ghouls yourself with your dinky Beretta, but it's generally not worth it. Because I'm having to use an emulator and a keyboard and the number pad, it actually reverses the gun controls so that they're different from the movement controls. So that's why I'm not taking a shot. You notice it's long and awkward for me to aim sometimes, so I'm just letting Hamfist do the work while we rack up the karma. So yeah, this is a great way to earn karma early on, and it's not something that you have to do, but it'll make the next segment of Jake's little adventures in Seattle a lot easier. Plus, you can get the ghoul bone as well as the magic fetish, which we got from saving that shaman that we saw in the old crypt here. So, Hamfist is useful that way. Obviously, he's a decker, so if you also have a Shadowrun to do, he can help you with that. You can also examine the skills of your Shadowrunner, not just his attributes, by actually examining him while he's fighting. And you can look and see what his skills are. Let's see, 1 in firearms, 1 in armed combat, which is like hand-to-hand, and 3 in computers. So, yeah, he's not bad as far as deckers go. It's kind of funny to think of an orc decker, not something that people commonly conceptualize. I think there was supposed to be one over here, yeah, there was. And so, it tends to pay off, and it's actually pretty fun having Hamfist around. He can definitely shoot him up real good. This is certainly an endorsement for the shotgun, with having him run around. Now you might see this gate back here, you think, oh, you know, maybe we can open it. Unfortunately, no, it's not an active gate. It doesn't lead anywhere. Not operable. Yeah, you just have him walk over and bam, he shoots him. So it's pretty fun. Just a simple, lighthearted, fast way to actually get going what you need to do. And unlike in Shadowrun for the Genesis, which gives you the option of hiring someone for the short term and the long term, in the SNES version, you just hire them straight up. And they'll, again, the duration from which they'll stay with you depends on your charisma and the number of Shadowrunners. Depends on that, so something to keep in mind. Usually it's of a decent amount, but it really depends. So let's continue on here. Alright, so moving up this way. Wow, so yeah, if you get them just before they're about to go back into the ground, you can still pop them and get some nice charisma. So, all we know now is that we've got the Maria Mercurial tickets. We've got those tickets, and we also have Glutman, which is someone that we used to know, apparently. And apparently his secretary thinks that he can help us out if we go to the club, known as the Cage, which he is said to frequent. Which I intend to do. I mean, that's really the next step in the story. It really helps to do a bit of karma grinding at this point in the game. Having Nuyen is not really that important right now, because the amount of Nuyen that you can earn now is not really very much compared to what you'll be able to earn once you've entered the next segment of the game. Now, once you do, though, there's no going back. I mean, you will be able to return to this area eventually, but as of now, no, you can't, so it really pays to be thorough here. And it's fun, too, because, hey, it's popping off ghouls and zombies. That's always a good bit for a laugh. Heck, Valve made 2 games that are dedicated to that solely, so hey, there's gotta be a market for it. Alright. Go, Hamfist, go! There you go. 1 shot. As for how many karma it takes per ghoul, I don't know, actually. I think it's kind of random. I'll count, maybe. We just got 1. Let's see how much it takes him to take out these 2 guys. As you can see, all you have to do is kite them around. The ghouls will only hurt you if they walk into you. However, if they do, they damage you fairly quickly. You get hit repeatedly, and it can actually stun lock your character. Okay, he got one ghoul there. He needs to get one more. You'll notice that in different directions, ghouls walk at different speeds. Alright, he got a second one. Let's see, this one will do it. You can also trap them behind graves. Unfortunately, you can't read the graves. That would be a nice little touch, but not really significant, I suppose. There we go. We got a third one, and it still didn't give a karma, so it might be 4 ghouls that takes. Alright, let's give that a try. Yep, it looks like it takes 4 ghouls to actually do it. Which is not bad. I mean, I think probably 8 of them spawn, maybe more, as you're wandering around the main area of the graveyard. They also randomly spawn in the crypts, but they tend not to stay out of the ground as long. So it's generally more efficient to actually just wander around the main plot rather than go into the crypts. You can also randomly search for Nuyen inside the crypts if you don't mind being a grave robber, but it's random and the money is generally not that good. And you're not really coming here for the Nuyen anyway. You can generally earn it much faster by fighting the dopes next door back at your flat. We popped another one. I think this one over here survived. Yep. I think that was all of them for this. Yeah, so about 4 or so, 4 or 5 per karma. And it adds up pretty quick. As for what you want to increase first, you know, it's really up to you. I mean, firearms is always good, body is always good. I believe, no, computer maxes out at 6. Firearms is also one of the skills that they made in this game that max out at 20. You really don't need to max out your attributes in this game. I mean, once you get it high enough, it really isn't necessary, and it takes a lot of karma grinding, especially when you start getting above values of 10. And it's like, do I really need that much health or that much firearms? I mean, you could spend hours just grinding away, blasting ghouls, and it's like, oh, what's the point? You know, is this really even necessary? And because the idea of the game is not just the rules, but the experience that you have playing it. So, something to consider anyway. I figured I would just show this little feature video just to give people a sense, in case they wanted to play this game, if they haven't already. If you have, I'm sure you've probably done this before. But if you haven't, this is a good tip to make this game a bit easier on you, because later on it could be considerably difficult. As older games tend to be if you don't really quite figure out what you're doing. And they don't really give you much of a lead in this title. I mean, you just kind of wake up in the morgue and you got no idea what's going on, and yeah, you find some papers, but hey, you know, if you weren't curious enough to follow that guy, you wouldn't even have a gun. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to defend yourself against all of these random shooters that appear on the street trying to take you out for this Drake fellow that apparently wants you dead. So you've got to be mighty careful. If you just generally walk in the vicinity where the ghouls spawn will pop out. There's like a few second delay, but it's generally pretty reliable. Come on there, ghoulie. I don't know the exact duration, like per charisma, how long Shadowrunners will stay with you. Probably maybe a half hour, something like that. I don't know, really, but it's long enough that if you want to go do a mission, they'll come along with you and they'll stick with you for the duration. Now, you have to be careful, though, because Shadowrunners, I think, can ditch you pretty much anywhere. Like, you can be in the middle of the dungeon, and when the timer runs out for when you hired them, they'll just be like, yep, I'm done, time to go, and kind of leave you in a bad spot. I've had that happen before. If you actually make Jake tough enough, you don't need to hire Shadowrunners. Like, if you grind out enough and raise up his stats and get the best equipment, you don't really need that much help, especially if you use some of the more powerful magical spells. And, you know, it's just like, well, is that really worth it? You know, I mean, it's a question of how you actually want to play the game. I mean, the same applies for the other version. Well, not really so much for the Genesis version, because considering there are more enemies that can actually take you out very quickly. It actually pays to have a party with you. As for raising attributes of your Shadowrunners, this is actually not possible in this game. I mean, what you pay for is what you get, and because they don't really stick with you, the only karma that you gain is for Jake and Jake alone. It's not like the other Shadowrunners get it, so you can't level them up or increase their skills, essentially, because there are no levels. I kind of like levelless systems like that. I mean, it makes more sense to me, these arbitrary levels. I mean, I understand why something like that was created to simulate in role-playing games, but I find it makes things a bit too cliche, a bit unnecessary, really. Like, why does it even need to exist in the first place? I mean, if you just... I mean, it really just becomes a way of inflating the numbers. I mean, if you use health, or stamina, or magic, or whatever as a percentage rather than a number, then I guess what they're trying to model is a sense of growth, but the problem is that you can grow to the point where it seems almost silly what your character is capable of. So it's really just a question of design element, what you think it should be, what characters should be capable of. And there's always, of course, if it's a multiplayer game of any kind, not something you're supposed to be playing by yourself, a case of balance. As far as single-player experiences are concerned, I feel that that's not really an issue, because, I mean, some games are just about, look at how amazingly powerful and awesome my character is, I'm just going to run around and kill everything, and it's not going to really affect anyone else, so what does it matter? Whether it's OP or broken or whatever, because it really has no significance on anyone else other than the player's individual experience. Well, some players might complain, be like, oh, well, you know, it's overpowered, so it kind of behooves me to use it. Yeah, but that's not really true, though. Because obviously you could do, people like to do these speed runs, which are skill-based, and they also like to do skill runs where, like, oh, you know, you don't use the powerful equipment, or you use deliberately weak equipment, and go for the no-death challenge, Iron Man, all that stuff. I mean, that all stuff exists. I mean, just because something's in the game doesn't mean you really have to use it. I mean, really, a game is only limited by the ways in which you can find yourself able to enjoy it. I mean, obviously, not all games are as sandboxy as Minecraft, where, you know, pretty much not so much a game as that it's a toy, you just kind of make your own fun with it. But, that's how it is, really. I mean, it's whatever you feel like doing. I mean, you could probably get through all of Shadowrun if you just wanted the Beretta and the little hand, you know, the little Beretta and the leather jacket that you have right now, which are hardly heavy firepower. You know, you could rely on your teammates to be the damage dealers, but you gotta remember is that they're only going to hang around for so long. It really depends on how you want to invest Jake. The general temptation that most players find, and that they experience, is optimization. It's like, oh, you know, I got a strong character, let's make him as beefy as heck. You know, nothing's ever going to get in their way. And it'll be pretty much good fun. Now, one thing that's kind of funny is that once the Shadowrunner's time is up, and they said, you know, oh, that's enough, Jake, the contract's up, it's kind of funny, because he just kind of, like, disappears. Like, they'll say that in the middle of some terrible dungeon, or corporation, or graveyard, like, oh, no, it took us an hour to get here. He's like, ah, I gotta go. You know, and then, boop, just disappear. Like a magic spell. There, you can see how the ghouls damage you. I got hit earlier. It can be pretty dangerous at low levels, and even at high levels, depending on which ghouls you're actually fighting. This isn't the only place we're gonna run into these little zombie friends, so you gotta be careful where you're going, where you're coming from. As, you know, so I think we'll pretty much have a little bit of fun running around here, and then that'll probably be this video for this week. And then, maybe I'll leave off with, old Schmucky Pants, aka Glutman, in the cage. It should be make for an interesting, encounter. Or maybe I'll leave out this video. I guess it really depends on how long Hamfist decides to stay with us. As you can see, we probably have quite a bit of karma already. Let's see, let's check real quick. Yeah, we've got 14 karma. That's very, very good. As for how much karma you can get out of each individual Shadowrunning experience with Hamfist, it really, again, depends on your charisma. It depends on how quickly he gets through them. I mean, because obviously the damage he does when he shoots is randomized. And you can also shoot to try to contribute to it, but your Beretta only does up to 3 damage. Right? As you've seen, his shotgun can do like 5 or 6 with a good hit. And he fires a little bit slower, but still pretty fast. Relatively fast, anyway. As you can see, the artwork in the game is fairly, decent, maybe, by 1993 standards. I mean, it's probably not as good as the Genesis graphics, as far as I'm concerned, but, you know, the gameplay is different. The Genesis system, it featured a lot more random elements, and the actual design of the system itself was much truer to the original, with the D6s that it used. I mean, this kind of took... they went a bit liberal with the rules when they made this for the SNES. I mean, some of the skills and attributes are still based off 6, but then they jacked up the rest of them. I don't know, if only to show that Jake's super badass, even though in the beginning he's really not. He's just kind of this Shadowrunner guy who got involved with the wrong people and got gunned down by a gang, and it's like nothing terribly sophisticated or badass about it. In fact, you wake up as kind of a putz who's just trying to make the best of a mysterious situation that he doesn't quite know what he's involved in. And, you know, of course they use the amnesia, which is like the bread and butter of video game narrative. You know, if it's not your parents or some family member that was lost in some tragedy, it's like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. It's actually fairly common in the horror genre, although this isn't really designed as a horror game. I don't know, I suppose if you're a little kid, maybe you might be scared of the ghouls. I mean, they do kind of make this weird little groaning sound. I don't know, I think modern zombie fiction probably does quite a bit better job of scaring people. At least I would hope so. If it doesn't, you know, now I'm just slightly confused, if that's the case. Good fun. So yeah, you probably only really have to do this once. I mean, you can do it as many times as you want. I mean, you can just grind the hell out of it. I mean, theoretically, you know, with the skills that you have, you could do this so much that you have your maxed out attributes before you're ever able to go on to the next segment of the game, but, you know, that would probably take quite a while. And I wouldn't particularly recommend doing it, considering it might actually minimize the potential enjoyment you might get out of the title itself. So, definitely would recommend against that. Well, he's coming after me. Come on, Hamfist, use that shotgun of doom and glory. Pop, there goes one. Yeah, and for some reason they explode into little bits of bones whenever they are finished off. And it seems kind of a early... This is what gore was like in video games, you know, before they were okay to show blood. This was right around the time that Mortal Kombat started coming out, so... And I think that kind of revolutionized video game violence for at least the standards for games. Considering I don't really think there was any good example where that was actually prevalent until then. I can't think of any, really. I'm sure that there's an example of which, but I'm not really sure. Oh, one other thing that you can do is, during combat, you can click on your guys and say, move to, and that will free the action, and then you can click a location. That's a good way. They'll auto-attack whoever is closest or, you know, the biggest danger to them automatically. But, you know, you can reposition them. Oh, no, you only want them to fire at this enemy by putting him in cover so that he only sees one enemy and not two, and they'll automatically change their target, so that's all you can really do. You can't really issue orders beyond that, I think. Oh, no, yeah, you can tell them to target as well. It's like, oh yes, target that guy, the scary ghoul that you're already shooting. Good job. You can also, when you hire mages, you can tell them which spell to cast, who to cast it on. That's a neat way you can make use of them. In terms of the different classes that are available, there are samurais, which are just fighters, basically. I don't know why they use the Japanese term, but whatever, that's what it is. There are also deckers, which is what Hamfist is, or Jake technically too, considering that he does have a cyber deck and a data jack. Data jack being the cyberware installation in his head, which allows him to jack into the Matrix virtual reality. And there are, of course, shamans and mages. Shamans who get their magic from nature, and mages who get their magic from refined study. It's actually something that's learned rather than something that's innate. Just a different origin. As far as I'm aware, the magic itself is practically the same in its application and use. So, Alright, there's another dead ghoul. We are blasting them down. Right out of Chinatown. As for what to actually get in terms of upgrades early on, it's up to you. I mean, firearms and body are always good, because you're going to be doing fighting in this game. There's no real way around it. I mean, you can just skip areas by running by the enemies, but there are a certain number of encounters in the game that are not optional, that you do have to actually engage in. And so that's something you have to consider. Pop. Shotgun is good for popping them. Whoa, 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 where are we going? Where are we going? Come on, come on. Yep, there we go. As for, other news, yeah, this is actually a fairly short game. Shadowrun games in general, I mean, the Genesis title, I mean, you get more length out of it just by doing random missions and working for the different Johnsons. I mean, the actual core narrative itself is relatively short and to the point. There's some pretty interesting, areas that you actually end up going to. But in terms of the essential narrative, it's a fairly short and concise story. It's fun, though. Definitely one of those old classics. And there are not a lot of cyberpunk RPGs out there. And they did put out Shadowrun Returns recently, which by Harebrained Schemes, I believe, which I'm very excited to see. I'm actually going to be doing a Let's Play of that after this title is complete, which will probably not be too long. And it will generally continue to occupy the Wednesday slot, which is damn good fun. As for Hamfist himself, well, you know, the Shadowrunners, they're all interesting in their own way. I mean, just thinking off the top of my head, I think there might be about a dozen Shadowrunners that you can hire throughout the game. And they all have different skills, different capabilities. Some are much better than others in terms of their skills and their attributes and their experience, but, you know, fortunately it's fixed, so you can't just hire people on permanently and level them up just like Jake. That's kind of a shame. Even, I don't know, that's not really much of a spoiler, but remember that Foxy lady that healed us in the cutscene in the very beginning of the game? She'll actually become a possible hire later on. But I won't spoil anything more than that. Just, it's an option that will become available later. So that's good to know. Come on, Ghoulie. Yeah, I see Hamfist just shoots him down before we can even get on target. Let's do this. We can do it. We can contribute. I'm shooting. You gotta be careful, because if you put your mouse cursor over your Shadowrunner, you can, like, if an enemy wanders into their space, it will track onto them, and you can unwittingly shoot your own team member. That's kind of embarrassing. You definitely want to avoid doing something like that. It could be slightly awkward to put on the resume. It's like, yeah, he's a great employer. I kind of had an issue with the fact that he kept shooting me out of sheer incompetence. I mean, that really kind of soured the work experience, personally. So, wouldn't recommend internship for that particular fellow. No. Oh, brains! Now, you don't want your health to get too low, because even though it's pretty easy to avoid the zombies, you do have to make it back to your apartment in order to rest, cover your hit points, and obviously spend your karma. And, you could get just sniped by some random shooter on the way home. That has happened before. Probably has happened to other people as well, and it can be a little bit frustrating if you haven't saved your game, or saved your state if you're using an emulator. It is a fun little thing to do, though. It's just when it happens. It's just one of those things where, oh, it's frustrating then, but yeah, you just kind of have to take a step back and laugh at it. You know, it's just one of those things that just happens. You know? Sometimes life just takes a big, cheery little dump on you, and you can't really do anything about it, and so you might as well just laugh about it, because, you know, things could be a lot worse. Whoa, get away! Unfortunately, the creepy trees that have eerie fingers sticking out of them, they don't seem to do anything. It'd be pretty nice if they were enemies and they, like, reached out and tried to grab you. That would be pretty creepy. Them little demonic eyes. Why are all the trees dead in here anyway? I mean, yeah, I know it's got ghouls, but, you know, at least we have shrubbery around here. If we have shrubbery, why can't we have trees? Maybe the ghouls are eating leaves? I mean, they keep coming after us, but maybe the ghouls are actually vegetarians. They're just trying to beat us up, make us leave the cemetery, because, hey, you know what? It's their home. We're invading their home, wandering around, messing up the place, just shooting them for no reason. You know, we're already the bad guys here, obviously. Invading the poor zombie's home. Really, he just goes into a graveyard and just starts shooting everything. That's ridiculous. But that's exactly what we're doing. It should go to show you that Shadowrunners are actually the bad guy here. Literally. I mean, especially when they work for the corporations. I mean, of course, the corporations are the heart of all the evil in this particular setting. I wonder if anyone is actually delusional enough to think that there will be actually real Shadowrunners. Although, really, they call it Shadowrunners, but really all it is basically just mercenaries. Or private military contractors, as they like to call them these days. It's just hired guns. That's really all it is, except you have magic as well. So hired mages, hired hackers, hired guns. This is pretty much it. That's what's going on. Whoa, we dodged that one. I'm actually surprised. I'm really surprised how long Hamfist is deciding to stick around on this amount of karma. It's really kind of unsettling. I mean, we're certainly getting a deal out of it. How much do we have now? 20. Oof. We might be able to actually max out a couple of our skills with that. Let's see, firearms and computers are currently at 3. 4, 5, and 6 is 15. So if we got 30 karma, we could max out 2... Oh wait, no. We can't max out firearms. We can max out computers and we can get firearms also up to 6. Which is very good for the early game. It might actually make more sense just to increase everything a little bit, rather than trying just to focus only on one attribute, because as you can see, we don't really have, even though we have a cyber deck, even though we have a data jack, we don't really have an opportunity to hack anything yet, so it doesn't really seem like it's worthwhile to go about increasing that skill overly much right now. When you consider that. Come on, buddy, bring it on! Got to beat Shadowrunning skills! So I was hoping that old Hamfist here would wear off, but apparently he's gonna stay on for quite a bit longer than I anticipated. So I'm probably gonna wrap the video up just as we're about to head into the Cage Club itself and begin the next stage of narrative. And it is something that you definitely want to be prepared for, because the next area you actually won't be able to leave until you prove yourself to the right people. So that's something you need to keep in mind. And proving yourself means knowing what it is to fight, to win, to dominate your foes. Whoa, lots of ghouls coming out. I really wish you could reach the gravestones. That would be a really pleasant little touch. And I wonder why the ghouls actually move at a different speed relative to their orientation, because obviously Jake moves at the same speed. Oh crap, we're stuck. We're gonna die. Oh wow, we actually survived. That's a glitch that can happen sometimes if a ghoul spawns right underneath you and you can't move. You better kill it really quick, because he might like eat away all your health. And you might die, and it might be really awkward. So that's definitely something to look forward to if you are going to be cautious about that. Hello, would like you to die, please. Die, die, and suffer and die some more. Thank you. So pretty much once you've earned up enough karma, tired of it, you can just pretty much go back and earn more money by shooting the random goons. It obviously takes quite a bit longer than you might anticipate. They only generally drop 10 or 20 Nuyen a pop, which you do it enough. Maybe 10 or 15 runs of that will actually get you the amount of Nuyen you need in order to hire old Hamfist and go on your ghoul hunting expedition. I think I actually might head back. Oh, and another thing, if your Shadowrunner actually runs out of health, you can't bring them back. You can't use a slap patch. When you get other forms of healing later on, that doesn't work either. Once they die, they're dead, and that's it. As for whether you can rehire them later, I think so. I think they will return to where you originally hired them, but I'm not sure. Obviously, if your health runs out, unlike the Genesis title, you don't have some doc squad that comes and retrieves you. You're just dead. You know, game over. You know, load from save, restart, try again. Be more careful, Jake. You know, that's the central thrust of what's going on here. I'm surprised. I honestly did not think that Hamfist would stick around for quite this long. It's actually kind of impressive. I didn't think 4 karma, or 4 charisma, excuse me, would actually be just what it took in order to make him stay on this long. So yeah, you can get a wealthy bounty of karma for the price. Something to consider. I think I'm probably just gonna have him do one more little pop and go here. Let's see, if everything is at 3, and there are 5 skills, alright, so each one will cost 4, so I can increase all 5 once I'm at 20 karma, which I believe I'm at, yeah, 22 karma. We could increase each of our skills by 1, which might be a decent way to start out. I mean, we could increase it even more than that, but then again, it would keep increasing. It would become 20, and then it would become 25, and that can really add up after a while. I mean, it's really up to you as to whether that's worth it. You can always do it later. It's just easier to do it now than it is to do it after the fact, because the AI obviously aims instantaneously. I mean, you have to literally click and then move over to it, and if you're not particularly good at moving it to the spot, it'll be harder. Also, increasing your firearm skills not only makes you more accurate to shoot, but it also increases the rate at which you track. So some enemies are really fast, and so if they're moving faster than your firearm skill it allows you to do, they will actually outrun you and you will lose your mouse cursor on them, which means you have to move it with them, which is obviously very tricky, especially if they're moving in a very erratic pattern. So certain enemies you need to be very careful about. And sometimes it really is smart just to run away if you can, because the last thing you want to do is die. Unless you're into that kind of thing. That'd make for an interesting Shadowrunning game. You just play a ghoul running around trying to fight Shadowrunners. I think they already have games like that. Anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much the deal. I think I'm probably gonna cut it after we blast this next series of zombies. There we go, got a karma. Finished him off just as he was going home. And probably just cut it there, and then next time we come back with Shadowrun for next week, we'll be right outside the cage. We'll be about to talk to Mr. Gluttman. Somewhere in there. Hopefully he's there. He's there, don't worry. And continue on our little story here. The next segment of the game is going to be fairly interesting. There'll be a lot of people to talk to. However, our confines will be fairly narrow. Fairly dangerous. Not that this isn't dangerous, but we're going to have a bit less freedom than we would before. And you might notice that we weren't able to take the train. The train station was closed down. That will open up later. Just a device that's used to keep you in the neighborhood for the time being, until the game is ready to let you explore on a more free-form basis where you want to go. Come on, punk, take us on. Let's go. Woo! Hamfist to the rescue. Blast him down, buddy. He'll take care of you. He'll take care of you real good. Come on, punk. Bring it on. Poppity pop pop pop. No, not very much. Do-do-do-do-do. You can do it, Hamfisty. Oh wait, we can shoot too, because we can use the grave as a barrier. I think even if you just stand here, close enough to where they spawn, you don't even have to move. Yep, they'll just pop out. Kind of a fun little trick you can use there. Come on, we can do this. We can do it. We can do it. Woo! Oh, I think we just accidentally shot Hamfist. Only a little bit. He's alright. It's our dinky little Beretta. It doesn't do very much damage. A whole lot of gun to shoot off. Very little bullet. Come on, ghouls. Come at me. There we go. We even earned our own karma that time. Didn't just get it from leeching off of our Shadowrunners. How noble. As you can see, the health that the ghouls are actually spawned with is fairly random. So sometimes they'll just die in one hit, and sometimes they'll take multiple shots. I don't think it's actually the same ghoul each time. I believe their health resets each time they spawn. So you can't just, like, whittle them down, then they come back out, you whittle them down again. It really is a case of, you know, hope you get lucky on the random spawn and just pop this guy out before he's able to do much of anything. Like that. Ow. So, yep. Next time, we will be outside the cage. That's, and we did see that before when we went all the way down the street and there was that big building with the bouncer that was 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide and all kinds of troll up in our face, unlike our orc Hamfist, as big and scary as he is. You got nothing on trolls. Trolls are what the big bad metahumans are really all about. You don't want to mess with trolls. Unfortunately, you can't hire any trolls in this game. Like Winston Mars, like in the Sega Genesis title, which was awesome, but no, you're not allowed to have any trolls in this one. It's really unfortunate. You got orcs, elves, humans, a few dwarves, but no trolls. It's really kind of a shame. Wow, this is a really tough ghoul. He probably took like 14 or 15 health. He didn't even die. What is going on here? Ah! Thankfully, your Shadowrunners cannot accidentally shoot you. That's a really good thing. Because if they could, it might be a much shorter game than otherwise advertised. Alright, there we go. Pop the other one, and then the last one over here hiding in the corner behind the crypt. He's trying to get a swoop. Oh, and we missed. Now here's one thing I want to leave everyone off with, this odd little visual graphic that always kind of confused me, and I always thought was something significant, although it never turned out to be anything. You might notice something really weird over there, right where my Hamfist is standing. Do you see it? That strange little black tongue, foot, something standing out there? I always thought that was something. I'd walk up to it, like I touch it, I try to shoot it, but no, it was nothing. It was just this weird little insert into the game's graphic area, the template for this zone. I never was able to figure out what it was. It's a mystery, everyone. It's a mystery for the ages. Alright, so this video has already ran a bit long, so I'm probably going to cut it here. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I certainly did.